We thought there was actually one thing, and then once we started using it, we actually realized the benefit was something else. So we've had our own health record system at Clinikk since the beginning, in which doctors have been writing prescriptions digitally to the point where patients walk out with a digital prescription. It's all been structured. And so while we were curious about the Scribe technology and maybe it could help us save some amount of that typing time, we thought that was the problem to be solved. Once we actually used Scribe, we realized it was unlocking and solving problems we had ignored, that we didn't even know were actually happening. So for example, there's so much that happens in the consultation room between the doctor and the patient, but in our experience, what makes it on the prescription is only a fragment, right? Maybe the medicines, the tests, maybe a small brief history, but actually face-to-face, so much conversation is happening, so much data collection is happening, which goes uncaptured because it's difficult to put all of that, right? And so that was one of the big unlocks, is actually start to represent that physical consultation in a much more rich way. And then that unlocks many things, which we can talk more about, but that's kind of been our before and after experience. I mean, there are a lot of companies these days that are, coming out as AI tools for, healthcare and in all the different domains. This is an AI tool for doctors, so and for patients. And so the threshold for deciding is much higher, right? We have to make sure it's safe, it works, and there are a lot of companies that will make claims about accuracy, speed, features, which in this market, it's very hard to verify. Is that actually happening or not? So we were really looking for, if there's any company that's trying to put out an AI tool for doctors or patients, how are they evaluating their product? And then those evaluations, have they made those public? Are those transparent? And Eka has been doing that for now quite a long time, making evaluations and data sets more public, speaking, transparently about those things. So that was one big factor. But those are also just benchmarks, those are tests. At the end of the day, you still have to see real world, does it work or not? So what we ended up doing was a trial. We first got on a call with the Eka team. Over on Google Meet, they were able to show us that, just over video conference, the AI Scribe on their computer or our computer could work, and it supported multilingual conversations, that was the other big concern for us, is many of our consultations, they hardly happen in English. Most of them happen in some mixture. And that was something we did not think was easy, but we were sort of just amazed by how Eka had implemented it. So that initial proof point, integration was easy, so we were able to test it quickly. And then we could roll it out to a much bigger level. We had tried Dictate in the past, so we had used open source dictation models to basically reduce the typing time. But what we saw with Scribe was something different altogether. It was the complete package from listen to a conversation, organize it into a structure, map it into things like SNOMED, right? Which are not at all easy things to do. Could we have done it? Maybe after a long time, but it just did not feel like the right use of resources. We wanted to unlock the value downstream before we started trying to do that in-house. So that was one factor in debating between in-house and that. We would have honestly not taken a solution for a long time unless we hadn't come across Eka, right? It just so happened that it was literally plug and play. If it had been any harder than that, we might have just been delaying that decision longer and longer and said, okay, it's not necessary right now. But since it was so easy to integrate, we said, let's try it out. Let's see what benefits there are, and then we can decide, a further thing. So those were like the big enablers for us. Yeah, the documentation was complete, and that was a smooth integration process. So that's why we were able to go ahead. So I would say there has been an impact on workflows, but there's an even bigger unlock that we see that will come as a result of this. So first I'll say this. So if you were to ask all of the doctors who've used Eka AI Scribe in our EMR so far, all of them would say that it has saved them time when it comes to the consultation total time. If you ask them, Has it made an impact on the patient's health and your ability to deliver better care? The majority of them would say strongly agree with that statement. So we've seen those things happen. Now, does that translate to more patients in a shift? That is yet to be known and determined. But the bigger unlock I was saying was that patient context, the clinical context of what is the patient's history, what is their, that rich clinical information that a doctor and patient exchange in a consultation. Now that is being captured, and that allows so many new use cases which are valuable for our business, which we before would not have been able to even unlock. So I would say we see some cost and efficiency, but we also see sort of new opportunities getting unlocked. Our vision for the technology for doctors is doing three things. We want the tools for our doctors to help them practice the best of modern medicine as efficiently as possible, and at the same time retain joy of practice. So I think Scribe, surprisingly to us, has become potentially a foundation for these things. So as I mentioned, it's already saving time. But it is because of how much we're now able to complete the patient health record. Some of those tools and technologies which we were building and thinking for patient safety, for clinical decision support, for clinical quality monitoring, those sorts of tools, technologies, monitoring have become much easier or in the realm of possibility, which before would have been harder to do. And then in terms of the joy of practice, I think if we can save a little bit more of that time typing and writing and more of that time discussing between the patient and the doctor, if we can use that to give more feedback on how is your clinical experience and your care, I think we have those sorts of things that become possible. And we see that with that. There are obviously also some areas which we're careful of, right? So scribing is at some level taking the job of documentation out of the doctor's practice. And the practice of documentation is a clinical skill in itself, right? Organizing the information in your head, writing about it. So there is that concern that, by removing that, are we maybe de-skilling? Are we maybe creating some other effects on the doctors? But that's something we'll keep on judging and testing and seeing. And based on feedback and based on what outcomes we see, take a decision on how to proceed. So it's a similar sort of technology adoption curve. You have some doctors who are very excited about trying something new, seeing what the future is, seeing what possibilities there are. So we had some doctors initially very quickly pick it up, start using it for many of their consultations. And then we had other doctors who were like, I'm not sure, I don't like necessarily the output of this technology. I like better when I write the way I write. And so we first sort of just took the approach of try it out in a few of your consultations, see how it looks like. And then what we asked doctors to do was use the scribe, of course with the patient's consent, and then you can choose not to use any of it and write your own thing, and we will compare the AI scribe's output versus your documentation, and then we will give that as feedback to the Eka team to see if we can start improving the output to sound more like what you would write or how you would do it. And that the team was very responsive to. So just last week we pushed an update where the output of the scribe started sounding a lot more medical than initially when we first rolled it out. It was capturing it in a full way, but it didn't have that doctor's feel initially, right? And we were able to do that very quickly. So now what we've seen is all of our doctors who are practicing in our clinics are using it. Some use it much more than others, but almost all of them are using it in a significant portion of their consultations. I would say that has created then also the feedback loop that we need to do. There are going to be so many benefits to patients as a result of richer clinical documentation, which AI Scribe unlocks. Yes, it's already helping in how much wait time they have between coming into the clinic and leaving the clinic, right? If there's before they could not leave until the prescription was ready. Now if that prescription takes less time to get ready and billing happens faster and all of that happens, their total time in the clinic reduces. The other thing is, now if the doctor is not necessarily typing while speaking to the patient and is able to focus directly face to face, that's definitely something the patient's going to take back as an experience. And also obviously, being exposed to something new in the clinic, some new advancements is a highlight, if not a delight. But over time, what we see again is that, in between visits, if let's say a patient and a doctor had discussed that, I have a difficult job in construction, it's causing me some chronic back pain, that is a conversation the doctor and patient might have had 3 months ago. In between that time, so much might have happened, so many different patients might have come. Now, to remember that required you to write that in the electronic health record before. Now you don't have to create that work on the doctor's part, right? And it's something that can just be happening passively. And the next time the patient visits, then we can continue that conversation, continue that clinical context, because that's ultimately the kind of care we want to deliver.